So hello everyone. Ooh, hello everyone and hello the recording. My name is Veronica and I'm gonna present what we are doing in our organization called Reset in the Czech Republic. So yeah, this is the cat that likes heat. Next slide, please. So first I will say something about Reset. We are called a platform for socio-ecological transformation, and we started to work 5 years ago around issues of climate and housing, and we are trying to identify and address the root causes of social and ecological crisis, and we focus on 5 different areas. One is the role of oligarchs, banks, and insurance companies in driving the climate crisis. One is the just transition, especially of the coal mining regions and building solidarity-based economic structures. One is supporting the ecosystem of social movements, so various educational events and different ways of support. And the last two we will talk the most about today is energy poverty and access to affordable energy, and the issue of housing injustice and rising rents. And we have this various team that are cooperating together on various issues. So I'm in the energy poverty team, and we have a big team of housing, people focusing on housing. On the next slide. I will start in 2021. Until then, we basically had experience, especially with these kind of things like mass mobilizations, like if you know Ende Gelände from Germany, student strikes of Fridays for Future, and these kind of tactics focused on coal mining. And we were like people who work in Reset are part of the climate justice movement. So we were all doing this kind of things, but oh, I'm sorry. Let me just make this smaller. Yeah, sorry. So we were using these tactics, but even during the lockdown, during the COVID, we were still doing this same kind of things until the government finally promised the end of the coal. That should be in 2033, the latest. And soon after that, where all the movement was thinking what to do next, what are the right tactics in this changing world, the prices of gas started to increase crazily, and some distributors of energy and of gas even went bankrupt. It was like such a thing. Thousands of households and thousands of people were standing in queues in front of energy companies' shops and searching for some other energy distributors before the winter should come. And in February 2022, the war started in Ukraine, and finally it was obvious why the prices of the gas were increasing so much, because the Russia is basically like financing, was like collecting money for financing the war. And this situation pointed out on two important things. And the first thing was that as the public and also the politicians were like strongly like on the side of Ukraine, like, oh, we have to support Ukraine against the Russian invasion, it was clear that we should stop buying gas from Russia, because basically all the gas used for heating in the Czech Republic is coming from Russia. It was obvious that the houses are not in good enough shape, and the first clear way how to actually save, like how to avoid buying this gas, is to actually insulate the houses and like increase the energy efficiency of housing in general. And the second thing that was pointed out by the war was that there was many people from Ukraine coming, escaping from the war. And in the first few months of the war, there was a big solidarity towards these refugees. People were offering them empty apartments. And that obviously infuriated many local people who were already struggling with the houses. And like it shifted these people towards the Ukrainian refugees, because it was obvious that there's like so many empty houses, and now they are like for free, while people already like in poverty in the Czech Republic. Nevertheless, after 3 years of the war, it doesn't really matter anymore, because we're still buying gas from Russia, and it's not even a topic anymore. And the Ukrainian refugees do not get any more solidarity, really, and their living situation is the same or often worse than the situation of the Czech tenants. And yeah, average household within these 2-3 years were paying sometimes, or like on average, like 60% for energy more, and in some cases it was even like 3 times more than before. So this is basically the outbreak of the crisis. On the next slide, you could see the actual queues of people. I just wanted to demonstrate that it was like a real thing, that people had to like wait and beg other companies to actually provide them with heating. And yeah, energy poverty is the topic that we started to focus on in this 2021 and 2022. And first I will say what it is. For us, it means, or like the definition is, that people pay a big part of their income for heating, or that they can't even heat properly for comfortable temperature, their homes, or they get into debts, or they cannot buy basic needs like food because of that. In the Czech Republic, heating is around 2/3 of what people pay for energy consumption. So it's like much more than the electricity, for example, for the light. And cooling homes in 2 hot months, it's not a topic yet, but it actually exists, because the climate crisis also means in the Czech Republic that in some months it's just unbearable. But I know, like, for example, we were talking in France, it's maybe more a topic, but here it's like, oh, we didn't realize it's actually hot in the summer yet. And even before this crisis that I was referring before with the war, it was almost 10% of population in the energy poverty, and now it's 13% of people who live in energy poverty, and half of these people are actually living in rent. It's like most likely that you are living in rent if you are in the energy poverty. There are, of course, also some homeowners who are poor and who have the same problems, but they always have some options what to do, like insulation, renovation, and whatever of these energy efficiency measures. If you are a homeowner, you can always get at least some state subsidies, and there is some support network for you. But if you are a tenant, you don't have anything. And in 2021 and 2022, there was no tenant movement existing yet. Organizing or community organizing was not a tactic that was used at all, basically, in the Czech Republic. And like, yeah, no unionizing and stuff like that. So it was like difficult to see where we will start. And the next slide will say that we started first with a campaign that was called Energy to the People. We started with these activities like organizing skill shares of DIY saving methods, like how to insulate your windows in your home, something like which is kind of cheap and easy, but will make some difference regarding how much you pay for energy, and also like the comfort of your apartment. We also organize a bunch of workshops focused on the tenants to know their rights regarding, for example, whether the landlord have to give them back the money if they don't use all the heats they paid for, etc. And we were also campaigning for some legal changes and increasing social benefits. On this part, it was successful because we managed to increase the housing allowances. So the state was supporting people in energy poverty with just giving them money, which is not the best solution, but it was like the fastest solution. And also they capped the energy prices, at least temporarily, so the companies couldn't increase them any further. But it still didn't do with the situation that the tenants are still in precarious position. So this you can see, and on the next two photos as well, how it was when we did this DIY installation workshops. It was also good because people there gathered and could like exchange experiences and discuss and organize, but unfortunately it didn't create like a big wave of like a new movement. On the next slide, I will try to explain what is the biggest challenge in organizing tenants, and that's the fragmented ownership of the apartments, of the housing. So far there is around 23% people living in rent, which means that some 77% live in their own homes. And since let's say economic transformation in 1989, from the so-called socialist regime to this current neoliberal capitalist economy we have now, there is a cultural approval of home ownership. So rental housing is still widely considered as something temporal, like something for young people, something for students. So any issue with the rental housing is something like, oh yeah, whatever, people will still buy their own apartment when they are older. But as we have the highest prices in Europe currently, to buy your own apartment in relation with the wages, which are very low here, the number of people who will live in the rent will be always increasing. It's already increasing in past 5 years a lot. And the ownership structure is fragmented, that most of the owners or most of the apartments are owned by some private person who owns 2 or 3 other apartments. Maybe in one they live in, and they have 1 or 2 extra that they are often renting. And that is what makes it so hard to negotiate, because like you can't really have any tenants to coordinate with against this one landlord, because there is not very much chance that there are some other tenants connected to this one landlord, or maybe just one other apartment. So for example, regarding to these renovations, if you live in some apartment with bad shape that would need to get windows changed or insulated or something like that, there is a high likely chance that the apartment is owned by a private person who doesn't live there. And if you want to do such major renovation, like exchanging the windows, which is maybe the first thing you should do, then you have to have a consensus with all the other owners of all the other apartments in the house, or like in the building. And your landlord will be, or might be, most likely the person who will like block the consensus of the other people, because he or she will not like benefit from the renovation, but they will have to pay their share for it. And this is what makes any negotiation regarding the renovation so complicated. We also have some big corporate landlords, but actually it's just one, let's say, and that's the Heimstaden that was already mentioned in 2 weeks ago when we were talking about Germany. It's a multinational huge company that in the Czech Republic owns 43,000 apartments. And it's also difficult to organize against this one big company, like the Berlin strategy, because this conflict between the people and the Heimstaden is going on for like 30 years, and it didn't really lead anywhere so far. So people very demotivated, and also mostly the motivation of the people to organize themselves against the Heimstaden is to buy out the apartments that they occupy, and not really to like improve the rentals conditions often. And then there are some other companies, but they are like 20 times smaller than in Heimstaden, so it's like there's not actually so many people. And then there are also municipalities who own apartments, but in the Czech Republic we have crazily small number of publicly owned housing, and that's less than 2%. And most of the municipalities are actually still selling their public housing into private hands. And those who are not doing it, who are progressive enough to actually keep the public housing, are in most of the cases also like progressive enough that they already renovated the houses. So yeah, basically it's very difficult to think of who is the target if we want to get the renovations to increase the energy effectivity. On the next slide, I will talk about what are the actual biggest issues of the tenants in the Czech Republic. The thing is that on average, we pay 44% of our income for housing. And that is like the first thing that any tenant will have a problem with. And another big issue is that the most prevailing kind of contract is a short-term contract, meaning that you only sign it for some temporal time. Mostly it's about 1 year, and 20% of tenants have a contract even shorter than 1 year. And each prolonging of the contract, or like each termination of one contract, means that the landlord can do whatever rent increase they want. Like they can increase the rent even 2 times, 3 times, 10 times, or of 5%, whatever. There is no regulation towards that. And this causes, of course, like a huge insecurity for the people who don't know if they will be allowed to live on the same place in 1 year. Obviously, especially if you like want to live somewhere or you have children, it's very complicated to imagine that every year you would have to move. And also you maybe don't have to move, but your rent can increase so much that you have no other option. And that is kind of more pressing problem than the actual state of the apartment. And also it pushes people back in the idea that they should organize and like talk with the landlord about some issues and demand the renovations, because they're already living in such an insecurity that they just don't want to risk something. And of course, the general public narrative or the public discourse is that tenants are irresponsible people who are not paying rent and who will just devastate the apartment. And there is a very strong landlord lobby. Very roughly and simplified, it's like 3/4 of the people are actually like likely to be also landlords, or not all of them, but especially and definitely all the politicians are landlords, and that makes very impossible to like bring some regulations from the top down. And in the next slide, you could just see for illustration how the rent is evolving, and the light blue, I mean, the highest is the Czech rents, and it goes way above the EU and even Germany average. On the next slide, finally, something positive. So because we saw that all this situation with energy poverty and renovations like is something we want to do, but it's definitely not the thing that the tenants are the most thirsty for. We started to do Tenants Initiative, we call it. So it's like a movement of tenants that was founded originally by members of Reset in 2022, but now it's becoming more and more independent, which is also the goal. So it is a member organization, and each person who wants to be a member also pays a membership fee, which is the same principle like being a part of unions. And Reset is currently doing only like supportive administrative role, basically. And currently Tenants Initiative has more than 400 paying members in 5 different cities. It has the biggest group in Prague, and also it has a group of expat and refugees, like non-Czech speaking people in Prague as well. And it functions, it's based on providing support and to help from the members to the members. So the issues that the members come up with are the things that they have in their life, and there is no some agenda brought like top down, saying, oh, we should do this and that campaign. What are the most common issues that the members are bringing to the initiative that they are seeking help with is that, well, the most common issue is that landlords don't want to give back the deposit for the apartments when the people are moving out. But maybe the second most often thing is that the landlord wants to keep the money that the people pay for the energy consumption. So you pay some money every month, but then at the end you don't consume so much because you're just like savvy, or maybe the year is a bit warm, so you don't have to use so much of the heating. And then the landlord basically keep the money he was supposed to pay for the energy company, and they want to keep it. So this is also very often problem that is already like related to also this renovations and energy poverty topic. And then there are these kind of problems like that the landlords are not willing to fix some elementary problems in the apartments that they are legally responsible for. Yeah, so basically, I want to say by this that it's very difficult to like bring a topic that the Tenants Initiative should somehow like do and campaign around, because it's always coming from the like real life issues that they have. And we saw that this is often something else than what would seem logical to do from the position of the climate justice movement. And yeah, just to say something positive is that during the last year, the Tenants Initiative managed to save more than 16,000 euro from greedy landlords, because the members like went to the landlord who didn't want to pay the deposit back or something like that. So it kind of works, and it motivates people to get in and like join the movement because they really see that it has some impact. But yeah, so far it's just 400 people, so we will see where this will lead. And on the next slide, I will just say like what the initiative does as well. It organizes public meetings discussing these issues that people are bringing and other related topic, education, from the perspective of like political education, as well as like practical advices, for example, how to get the housing allowances or these kind of very practical things. It is dealing with specific issues what the members are bringing, like legal support, some community support, etc., as I was saying on the previous slide. And it also is trying to change the public discourse on how is it to live in rent, and somehow like work against the discourse of tenants are just going to destroy your apartment. And yeah, also trying to do some research and do some trainings for new tenants who are joining, and also getting experience with similar movements abroad. On the next slide, this is from the last year's meeting, when there is just, this is not like all the members, but just like the delegates from all the cities, thinking about some major decisions and strategy for the next year. And yeah, I would summarize with some lessons learned, and this what we learned as reset, as we originally wanted to really connect like this climate and energy topics with the housing, is that energy poverty is only one problem of the tenants. And besides the super high costs of housing and insecurity caused by the short-term contracts, this is like always on the first place. And this is why also we think that changing this should be a climate policy. And yeah, tenants rather organize themselves around the most urgent matters, and not for these long-term goals. So even if we found a place where people live in apartments in really bad shapes, that would definitely need some energy efficiency measures, or like the whole rebuilding of the houses, then you can, for example, experience that people there deal with like extremely racist landlord, or with like stuff like insect in the apartments or something like that. And it's just usually ends up with some like rather different solutions than organizing a campaign for renovations. And the current, I was also already mentioning it, but the current government and very likely the next government as well are disregarding both the climate policies and the housing regulations, which I believe it's very similar in all the countries that are presented here. And I would actually be super interested in having a conversation about this. But yeah, we could still find what to do. But as also the ownership of the apartments is so like fragmented, it's just like difficult to even like find some target and to like navigate in this situation. And then the next slide is to finish with something positive, is that what we also use community organizing for in Reset is to start community energy. That could also be of some help for the energy poor people. Now it's a good timing for thinking about community energy. Because the climate justice movement was pushing for community energy, like for the topic for years. And now finally it is legally possible. It literally started to be legally possible like a year ago or half a year ago. And the legal framework, even though it's not perfect, is actually, I would say, quite good in comparison with other, like with the CEE region. And the community energy so far, it's like mostly when we talk about it, we talk about photovoltaic power plants that people put on their roofs, which means that you have to be owner of some roof, which means that is mostly designed for people who are homeowners and who have like houses rather than apartments. So it seems that would be rather for people who are a bit better, like well off. But you could also create the community of people who part of them are homeowners and part of them are tenants, and then the tenants can benefit from the extra producing of energy from the homeowners. So this is something where we would like to get. And so far, we are working on our pilot project that we're trying to organize a community of rather low-income people who part of them are homeowners and part of them are tenants in the city of Děčín, which is in a former or still coal mining region, and where we have two community organizers that are working on this project. And ideally, in the future, we would like to have more such projects and combine the homeowners with the tenants so that they can benefit from the community energy, even though they don't own their own roof where to put the source of the energy. And even though I said that the electricity itself, it's not the most expensive, or like it's not the biggest problem because that's the heating, the community energy could even solve the issue of the heating with some technical stuff like to have community heat pump, or it's just like a good starting point, and then you can just exchange the technology for whatever is the most useful. And the last slide is a happy photo of the community in Děčín from their first strategic planning meeting. Yeah, I think this is like all what I wanted to say. And if you wouldn't have any questions, I would like to start the discussion about, yeah, how is it in your countries?